Okay, so sorry it's taking me so long to put out this one, but yeah, so after niching down and defining your audience and kind of honing in that funnel of what type of individuals you want to work with and who you do your best work with possibly, you want them to come and see you. So you're trying to figure out how to call in your ideal clients, how to speak to your ideal clients, and taking it in a couple steps. So first off, I think making sure, unless your ideal client is like another therapist or another healthcare professional or, whatever modality you're working with, we really want to try to not be so clinical. So, yeah, we can probably all land on a page where it's talking a lot about trauma and attachment and theories we work from and using a lot of counseling language. And if you're not speaking to another counselor or another person who is very educated around trauma or whatever it may be, those words might not resonate with your ideal client. So they might not see their breakup as a transition or might not label their childhood happenings as trauma. So when you're talking about, I work with people that have childhood trauma, again, that ideal client might not have that awareness yet that their childhood happenings were traumatic. And so they're not really going to see themselves in your words or your marketing. So use language that your clients would use. They usually don't use attachment style, transition, trauma. Sometimes they don't even use anxiety. They might use things such as I can't stop my thoughts from racing. I cry all the time at work. I don't really remember my childhood. So yeah, just trying to use language that your clients would use. So thinking back to those consultation calls, what do people say when they call you? What are they struggling with? What do they want to work on? And going to the next thing is kind of speaking to their pain points. So we don't want to just mention that after working with me, you're going to feel great and you're going to feel better. Even though some of that might be true, we want to describe how their relationships can look different. We want to maybe be specific about how their sleep can look better. If they're staying up all night, having racing thoughts or whatever it is, we want to focus more on the specifics. So what are their pain points? Okay, I am getting 2 hours of sleep because I can't get to sleep. I can't turn my brain off. Every time I close my eyes, I feel like I'm going to have a panic attack. Speaking to that experience, and then also speaking to how that can look better after some things are understood a little bit differently. So using their language, again, what are they saying when they call in, and kind of mimicking that. Yeah, for that too, also can be helpful to kind of use that ideal client picture, or even think of past clients or current clients that you have and kind of thinking through again the words that they use and speaking their language, and not so much speaking from a lens. So you want to speak to the person before they're in therapy. You don't want to speak to them as if they've been in therapy for years or if they've had 10 sessions with you, because again, after years of therapy or 10 sessions with you, they might have a better understanding on things, but we're trying to get people to call us before they've had those sessions and those understandings with us, or throughout the work that we do. So also let your authenticity shine through. So don't forget that you're human. You're not just this clinical knowledge machine. So making sure that you're able to let some of that humanness through, sometimes through humor, sometimes through sharing a little bit of your story if that's appropriate. Talk about your interests. Don't forget that part of a lot of why people choose to work with you is because you're you. Yes, of course, we have the clinical knowledge and the confidentiality and the ethics and all the things, but you are a very important part in all of this. And then meet them where they're at. So what if that means like in person or online, just using that kind of thought process of meeting them where they're at. If your ideal client is someone who works out a lot, I don't know, maybe you have a presence at a gym or at group fitness places. Maybe you put flyers up there or you host a little talk there. Maybe your ideal client is like a working mom who's involved with her kids or something, and so maybe you get in front of a school PTA meeting and you share about parenting type things. Or your person is like always on social media, and so you have a presence on social media. So just being able to think about who your ideal client is, and again, what they're already doing, and then trying to leverage and use that to meet them where they're at. Thinking if your ideal client is someone who neglects themselves and their health, probably networking with, I don't know, primary care physicians is not going to be your best bet, because your ideal client isn't going to a yearly PCP or annual appointment. So not that it's going to be worthless, you're probably going to get some referrals from PCP people or physicians, but just knowing like that ideal client who's really neglecting themselves and not taking care of themselves probably isn't going to their annual physical appointment, and therefore spending a lot of time or money networking with PCPs is probably not going to be how you can get in front of those people. And then, just like knowing your audience. So who is reading your marketing? Of course, if you work with kids, even like some adolescents, the kids usually aren't going to be the one like looking for a provider or looking for a therapist. It's going to be their parents. So you want to make sure that you're, of course, talking about the child's pain points, but you're speaking to the parents. If you're working with that older adolescent population, probably speak a little bit to both, because sometimes those older adolescents are the ones looking for a provider, and they definitely want to have the buy-in on what providers they see, so they don't want to like solely just feel like you're talking to their parents. Even if you work with like postpartum moms, sometimes having copy that speaks to those postpartum moms is really helpful. And then sometimes also like to a partner, because that partner may be looking for services for their loved one. It really could go like either way for lots of things, but just kind of know and think through that before like writing your directory listing stuff or your marketing stuff, or who it is, like who are you speaking to. Again, if we see 5-year-olds, speaking to a 5-year-old looks very different than speaking to a 35-year-old mom or dad or whoever it is that's taking care of that child and looking for services for them. So remember and remind yourself kind of consistently through this, because it can be a lot to kind of think through, that like when you are trying to appeal to everyone, sometimes you don't really end up connecting to anyone. So the whole point of niching down, calling in your ideal client, is to be very specific in who I'm talking to, and to allow that funnel to do the natural weeding out of people who you don't do your best work with, who you don't want to work with, whatever it is. But it also is very clear on what I do, who I work with, because I'm not trying to appeal to everyone. I do not want everyone calling me, because I cannot help everyone, just by nature of my caseload and what I do, but also just in general, like we don't want to call in everyone. So just sorting through a lot of that stuff. But don't be so clinical. Speak to their pain points, let your authenticity shine through, meet them where they're at, and then just in general, know who you're talking to. But questions, always shoot them over via email or whatever it may be. Okay.